Roy Carter slams into the side of the prison transport as it plummets through Zeta-9's atmosphere. Alarms blare. Metal groans. The ship hurtles towards the planet's surface, a victim of the raging sandstorm outside. Roy grits his teeth, bracing for impact. This isn't how he expected to die when the Galactic Council sentenced him to exile. The ship crashes. Twisted metal and sand spray in all directions. Silence follows, broken only by the hiss of ruptured coolant lines. Roy's eyes flutter open. He's alive, against all odds. Unfastening his restraints, he stumbles to the emergency hatch and wrenches it open. Three suns assault his vision as he emerges. Heat waves distort the horizon, an endless sea of sand stretching in every direction. Roy shields his eyes, scanning for any sign of life or shelter. There in the distance, he spots something jutting from the dunes. Trudging through the shifting sands, Roy approaches the anomaly. As he draws closer, he realizes it's not natural. Alien architecture emerges from beneath centuries of sand, the ruins of an ancient city. Massive stone structures, adorned with unfamiliar glyphs, stand as silent sentinels against time. Roy enters the outskirts of the ruins, seeking refuge from the punishing suns. Cool shadows offer brief respite as he explores deeper into the abandoned metropolis. His footsteps echo through empty streets and chambers until a voice breaks the silence. "Who are you?" The words, spoken in perfect galactic standard, freeze Roy in his tracks. He turns slowly, coming face to face with a breathtaking alien woman. Her skin shimmers with an opalescent sheen, large almond eyes regarding him with a mixture of curiosity and hope. "I'm Roy Carter," he manages, throat dry from the desert air. "Human, exiled here by the Galactic Council." The alien's eyes widen. "A human? Here." She steps closer, studying him intently. "I am Maya of the Deltan people. We thought our world unknown to the galaxy at large." Roy explains his situation, the diplomatic infractions, his sentencing, the crash. Maya listens intently, a plan forming behind her luminous eyes. "Perhaps fate has brought you to us, Roy Carter," she says. "My people face extinction. A genetic flaw has rendered most of our males infertile. But your human DNA could be our salvation." Roy's brow furrows. "What are you suggesting?" Maya's gaze is direct, her voice filled with determination. "Become our breeding bull. Help us repopulate. In return, you'll have power, influence, a chance at revenge against those who sent you here to die." The offer hangs in the air between them. Roy considers the implications, the unexpected opportunity presented by this twist of fate. He thinks of the Galactic Council, believing him dead in the crash. A slow smile spreads across his face. "Maya," he says, extending his hand, "I believe we have a deal to discuss." Roy's smile faded as the weight of Maya's proposal settled upon him. He lowered his outstretched hand, considering the implications. "Before I agree to anything, I need to know more. Show me your people, your civilization." Maya nodded, her opalescent skin shimmering in the dim light of the ruins. "Follow me," she said, turning towards a partially collapsed structure. They navigated through crumbling corridors and down winding staircases, descending deeper into the heart of the ancient city. The air grew cooler, carrying a faint metallic scent. After what felt like hours of twisting passageways, they emerged into a vast cavern that took Roy's breath away. A sprawling, subterranean metropolis stretched before them, bathed in the soft glow of bioluminescent fungi. Sleek organic structures rose from the cavern floor, their surfaces adorned with the same alien glyphs Roy had seen above ground. Deltan citizens moved about their daily lives, their shimmering forms a stark contrast to the rough stone walls surrounding them. "Welcome to Zephyria, last bastion of the Deltan people," Maya said, her voice tinged with both pride and sadness. As they made their way through the city, Roy marveled at the advanced technology seamlessly integrated into the ancient architecture. Holographic displays flickered to life as they passed, and vehicles that seemed to defy gravity glided silently overhead. Maya led him to a towering structure at the city center. "The council chamber," she explained. "Our elders will want to meet you." Inside, 7 elderly Deltan females sat in a semicircle, their large eyes fixed on Roy with a mixture of curiosity and wariness. Maya stepped forward, introducing Roy and explaining the circumstances of his arrival. The eldest of the council, her skin a pale, shimmering blue, spoke. "A human? Here on Zeta 9? This is unexpected." Roy recounted his story once more, detailing his exile and crash landing. The elders listened intently, exchanging meaningful glances as he spoke. When he finished, another counselor leaned forward. "Your arrival may indeed be fortuitous, Roy Carter, but we must be certain. You will undergo a series of tests to determine your compatibility with our physiology." Over the next several days, Roy found himself subjected to a battery of examinations. Deltan scientists drew blood, scanned his body with strange devices, and subjected him to a myriad of physical trials. Throughout it all, Maya remained by his side, explaining the process and offering encouragement. During a break between tests, Roy turned to Maya. "Tell me more about your people's situation. Why is my being here so important?" Maya's expression grew somber. "Our males have become increasingly infertile over the past few generations. We've tried everything to reverse the trend, but nothing has worked. Without intervention, our species will die out within a century." Roy absorbed this information, his mind racing with questions. Before he could voice them, a commotion erupted nearby. A group of young Deltan males stormed into the laboratory, their faces contorted with anger. "How dare you bring this alien here?" one of them shouted, pointing accusingly at Roy. "He'll contaminate our bloodline." Maya stepped between Roy and the aggressors. "Zorn, stop this. The council has approved his presence. He may be our only hope." The one called Zorn sneered. "We don't need some human to save us. We'll find our own solution." Security personnel quickly arrived, escorting Zorn and his followers from the lab. Maya turned to Roy, her expression apologetic. "I'm sorry about that. Not everyone is as open to outside help as we'd hoped." As the days passed, Roy learned more about Deltan culture and physiology from Maya. She taught him their language, explained their complex social structures, and even began training him in basic survival skills necessary for life on Zeta 9. Finally, after a week of intensive testing, the council reconvened. The head elder addressed Roy directly. "The results are clear. Your DNA is indeed compatible with ours. It may offer a solution to our crisis." A ripple of excitement passed through the chamber, but the elder raised her hand for silence. "However, we cannot simply accept you based on genetics alone. You must prove your worth, your ability to survive and thrive on our world." She outlined 3 challenges: a week of survival in the harsh desert, navigating a treacherous maze in the ancient ruins, and ritual combat against one of Zeta 9's fearsome predators. Roy's mind reeled at the prospect, but he steeled himself. This was his chance not only for survival, but for a new life, far from the reach of the Galactic Council. He stepped forward, his voice steady. "I accept your challenges." As preparations for the trials began, Roy couldn't shake the feeling that there was more going on than met the eye. The hostility from Zorn and his followers, the guarded nature of the elders, and the advanced technology hidden beneath the sands, it all hinted at deeper secrets. One evening, as he and Maya walked along the outskirts of the underground city, Roy broached the subject. "Maya, is there anything else I should know about your people, about why I'm really here?" Maya hesitated, her luminous eyes darting away for a moment before meeting his gaze. "Roy, there's so much to tell you, but some things must wait until you've proven yourself. Please understand, our survival depends on this." Roy nodded, unsatisfied but accepting her answer for now. As they turned back towards the city center, he couldn't help but wonder what other surprises Zeta 9 held in store for him, and what role he would ultimately play in the fate of the Deltan people. As Roy absorbed the weight of Maya's words, the enormity of his situation settled upon him. The fate of an entire species potentially rested on his shoulders, yet he couldn't shake the feeling that there was more to uncover. Before he could dwell further on these thoughts, Maya led him back to the council chamber. The elders were gathered, their faces a mixture of anticipation and apprehension. "Roy Carter," the head elder spoke, her voice carrying a hint of reverence, You have proven your compatibility with our people. Now, you must prove your worth. She outlined 3 challenges, each designed to test different aspects of Roy's abilities. The second challenge caught his attention immediately, navigating a treacherous maze within the ancient ruins. Days later, Roy stood at the entrance of a vast underground labyrinth. The Deltan elders surrounded him, their shimmering forms casting an otherworldly glow in the dim light. This maze was constructed by our ancestors, one of the elders explained. It is a test of intelligence, endurance, and adaptability. Maya approached, holding a small device and what appeared to be a rudimentary map. This will allow us to communicate, she said, handing him the device. And this map, it's not complete, but it should help you get started. Roy took the items, his fingers brushing against Maya's. Her eyes met his, filled with a mixture of concern and something deeper. Be careful, she whispered. With a nod to the elders and a final glance at Maya, Roy stepped into the maze. The entrance sealed behind him with a resounding thud, leaving him alone in the cool, musty airs of the ancient passageway. Roy's military training kicked in as he surveyed his surroundings. The walls were adorned with intricate glyphs, similar to those he'd seen in the ruins above ground. He pulled out the map, orienting himself before proceeding deeper into the labyrinth. As he navigated the twisting corridors, Roy encountered his first obstacle, a chamber filled with shifting floor tiles. Some tiles sank when stepped on, while others triggered unseen mechanisms. Roy observed the patterns, timing his movements carefully. He leaped from tile to tile, narrowly avoiding a trap that sent spikes shooting from the walls. Deeper into the maze, Roy came across a room filled with ancient Deltan script. The exit was sealed, a series of symbols glowing on a nearby panel. Roy studied the writing, recognizing similarities to the language Maya had been teaching him. He pieced together the puzzle, rearranging the symbols until the door slid open with a grinding sound. Unbeknownst to Roy, danger lurked ahead. Zorn and a group of his followers had secretly entered the maze before him, determined to sabotage his efforts. They set traps and activated ancient defense systems, hoping to prove Roy unworthy of the Deltan's trust. As Roy rounded a corner, he heard a low rumble. Instinct took over, and he dove forward just as a section of the ceiling collapsed behind him. Dust filled the air, and Roy coughed, his heart racing. He examined the cave-in, noticing signs of deliberate tampering. This wasn't part of the original maze, he muttered, activating his communication device. Maya, are you there? I think someone's trying to interfere with the trial. Static crackled before Maya's voice came through, tinged with concern. Roy, what's happening? He explained the situation, describing the sabotage he'd encountered. Maya's response was filled with awe-inspiring anger. It must be Zorn and his followers. Be careful, Roy. I'll inform the elders, but we can't intervene directly. You'll have to rely on your own skills to survive. Roy pressed on, his senses heightened. He navigated through more traps, some part of the original maze, and others clearly added by Zorn's group. His military training proved invaluable as he disarmed mechanisms and avoided pitfalls. Hours into the maze, Roy discovered a hidden chamber. Inside, he found advanced Deltan technology that seemed out of place in the ancient structure. Holographic displays flickered to life as he entered, showing star maps and what appeared to be genetic sequences. As Roy examined the data, a chill ran down his spine. The displays showed clear evidence of past contact between Deltans and other alien races, including humans. More importantly, he found information about the true nature of the Deltan's genetic flaw. It wasn't natural, but the result of deliberate manipulation. Roy's mind raced with the implications. He gathered as much data as he could, knowing this information could be crucial for the Deltan's future. Pressing on, Roy encountered more sabotage from Zorn's group. He narrowly escaped a collapsing passageway and outsmarted a reconfigured defense system. At each turn, he collected evidence of the interference, determined to present it to the elders upon completing the trial. As he neared what he believed to be the center of the maze, Roy entered a vast circular chamber. The room hummed with energy, and suddenly holographic projections sprang to life around him. He found himself surrounded by images of various alien species, some he recognized, others entirely foreign. A disembodied voice echoed through the chamber. Identify the strengths and weaknesses of each species to proceed. Roy's diplomatic experience proved invaluable as he analyzed each projection. He recalled negotiations, conflicts, and alliances from his time with the Galactic Council. One by one, he provided detailed assessments of each race's capabilities and vulnerabilities. As he completed the final evaluation, the holograms vanished. A doorway appeared, bathed in soft light. Roy stepped through, emerging into the blinding glow of Zephiria's bioluminescent fungi. Cheers erupted as he exited the maze. A crowd of Deltans had gathered, with the elders and Maya at the forefront. Roy's fatigue melted away as Maya rushed to embrace him, her relief palpable. The head elder approached, her expression a mixture of pride and curiosity. You have succeeded where many have failed, Roy Carter. But I sense you have more to share than just your victory. Roy nodded, his expression grave. I do. I've uncovered evidence of sabotage within the maze, and I've made discoveries about your people's history that you need to see. As Roy presented his findings, murmurs rippled through the crowd. The elders exchanged concerned glances, while Zorn and his followers were quickly apprehended. Maya squeezed Roy's hand, her eyes shining with a mix of admiration and growing affection. You've earned the right to court me, according to our customs, she said softly. There's so much more I need to teach you about our ways. Before Roy could respond, a group of Deltan scientists approached, their expressions eager. We have a proposal for you, Roy Carter, one of them said. Your DNA could be the key to our survival on the surface. With your help, we could create a new generation of Deltans capable of thriving in Zeta-9's harsh environment. As Roy considered their words, he felt a tremor beneath his feet. He glanced at Maya, who also seemed to have noticed. Is that normal? He asked. Maya shook her head, her brow furrowed. No, seismic activity like this is rare. Roy's mind flashed back to the ship he'd seen in orbit before his crash. A suspicion began to form, one that could change everything for the Deltans and himself. As the crowd dispersed and preparations for Roy's final challenge began, he couldn't shake the feeling that he'd only scratched the surface of Zeta-9's secrets. The Deltan elders huddled together, engaged in heated whispers, clearly debating how much to reveal to their human visitor. Roy stood at the precipice of a new chapter in his life, one filled with potential, danger, and the promise of uncovering truths that could reshape the future of an entire civilization. Species. The tremors beneath their feet grew stronger, sending vibrations through the cavern walls. We need to investigate this, Roy said, turning to the head elder. These tremors could pose a threat to your city. The elder nodded gravely. Agreed. Roy Carter, we had intended for your final challenge to be ritual combat, but circumstances have changed. Instead, we task you with uncovering the source of these disturbances. Roy's eyes widened at the unexpected turn of events. I accept, he said without hesitation. The elder gestured to a group of Deltan scientists. Prepare our most advanced equipment for Roy. He will need all the protection and tools we can provide. Within hours, Roy found himself outfitted in a sleek, form-fitting suit designed to withstand Zeta-9's harsh surface conditions. A Deltan technician handed him a multifunction scanner, explaining its capabilities in rapid-fire detail. As Roy prepared to depart, Maya approached him, her expression determined. I'm coming with you, she stated firmly. Roy opened his mouth to protest, but Maya cut him off. I know these lands, Roy. You'll need my expertise. The elders exchanged worried glances, but ultimately acquiesced. Soon, Roy and Maya were making their way through a series of tunnels leading to the planet's surface. As they emerged into the scorching heat of Zeta-9's desert, Roy's suit immediately began regulating his body temperature. Maya seemed unaffected by the extreme conditions. Her Deltan physiology adapted to the environment. They trekked across the dunes, the scanner in Roy's hand pulsing with increasing frequency as they moved further from the underground city. After hours of grueling travel, they crested a particularly large dune and froze at the sight before them. Nestled in a valley partially obscured by swirling sand, stood a structure that was decidedly not Deltan in origin. Its smooth metallic surface reflected the harsh sunlight, creating a mirage-like effect. That's Galactic Council architecture, Roy whispered. his heart rate accelerating. They're here. They've been here all along. Maya's luminous eyes widened in shock. How is this possible? We've never detected any off-world presence. Roy's mind raced as he considered the implications. Advanced cloaking technology. They didn't want anyone to know they were here, including your people. They cautiously approached the facility, using the dunes as cover. Roy's military training kicked in as he assessed potential entry points and security measures. To his surprise, the outpost seemed minimally guarded. They must rely heavily on their camouflage, Roy muttered. They don't expect anyone to find them out here. Using his scanner, Roy located a maintenance hatch near the base of the structure. With Maya's help, he managed to bypass the security protocols and gain entry. Inside, the stark contrast between the facility's cool interior and the desert heat was jarring. Roy and Maya moved silently through the corridors, their footsteps echoing softly on the metallic floors. They soon came across a laboratory filled with holographic displays and sophisticated equipment. Roy's breath caught in his throat as he examined the data scrolling across the screens. Maya, he said, his voice tight with anger, they've been experimenting with Deltan DNA. Your genetic flaw, it wasn't natural. The Council created it. Maya's face contorted in a mix of shock and rage. Why? Why would they do this to us? Before Roy could respond, a door hissed open behind them. They whirled around to find themselves face to face with a group of startled Galactic Council scientists. For a moment, time seemed to stand still. Then chaos erupted. Roy sprang into action, his combat training taking over. He dodged a clumsy attempt to restrain him and delivered a swift strike to the nearest scientist's solar plexus. Maya proved to be a formidable ally. She manipulated the lab's equipment with practiced ease, creating barriers between them and their attackers. As they fought, Roy caught glimpses of data on the screens around them. The Council had been attempting to create a race of super soldiers, capable of surviving in the harshest environments. The Deltans were their unwitting test subjects. In the heat of the battle, Maya cried out in pain. Roy turned to see her clutching her side, a nasty burn marring her shimmering skin. One of the scientists had managed to hit her with some sort of energy weapon. Roy's world narrowed to a pinpoint. He incapacitated the remaining attackers with ruthless efficiency, then rushed to Maya's side. Drawing on the knowledge Maya had shared with him about Deltan physiology, Roy assessed her injury. The burn was severe, but not life-threatening if treated quickly. We need to get out of here, Roy said, supporting Maya's weight. But first, we're going to make sure the Council can't continue their experiments. With Maya's guidance, Roy accessed the facility's main computer. He initiated a cascading system failure that would trigger a self-destruct sequence. As alarms blared around them, Roy and Maya made their escape. They barely cleared the blast radius when the outpost exploded, sending shockwaves across the desert floor. The journey back to the underground city was arduous. Maya's condition worsened, and Roy had to carry her for the last stretch. As they descended into the cool embrace of the caverns, Roy's mind whirled with the implications of their discovery. The Deltan elders were waiting for them, their faces etched with concern. Roy quickly recounted their findings as Maya was whisked away for medical treatment. The revelation of the Galactic Council's betrayal sent shockwaves through the Deltan population. The elders convened an emergency session, debating their next steps. In the midst of the chaos, a young Deltan scientist approached Roy. Your DNA, he said urgently. It could be the key to undoing the Council's manipulation. With your help, we could create a new generation of Deltans free from the genetic flaw. Roy nodded, his mind already racing ahead to the challenges they would face. But before he could respond, a low rumble echoed through the cavern. Proximity alert, a Deltan guard called out. A Galactic Council warship has entered orbit around Zeta 9. Roy's fist clenched as he realized the destruction of the outpost had drawn the Council's attention. They were out of time. The Deltans would have to fight for their survival, and Roy was now at the center of a conflict that would determine the fate of an entire species, and perhaps the future of humanity itself. Roy's mind raced as he processed the gravity of the situation. The Galactic Council warship looming above Zeta 9 posed an immediate threat to the Deltans' existence. Without hesitation, he sprang into action, his military training taking over. We need to fortify our defenses, Roy announced to the gathered Deltan elders and scientists. Your technology is advanced, but it wasn't designed for warfare. We need to adapt quickly if we're going to survive this. The Deltans, still reeling from the revelation of the Council's betrayal, looked to Roy with a mixture of hope and uncertainty. Maya, her injuries now treated, stood by his side, her expression fierce and determined. What do you propose? The head elder asked, her luminous eyes fixed on Roy. Roy outlined his plan rapidly, gesturing to the holographic displays around them. We'll create a multi-layered defense system. Your force field technology can be modified to create barriers. We'll need weapons. Your energy manipulation devices can be repurposed into ranged weapons, and we'll need to prepare for ground combat. The Deltan scientists and engineers sprang into action, their hands flying over control panels as they began to implement Roy's strategies. Maya coordinated their efforts, her intimate knowledge of Deltan technology proving invaluable. As the preparations continued, a young Deltan rushed into the command center. The Council forces have landed on the surface, he exclaimed, his voice trembling. Roy's expression hardened. It's time. Maya, I need you to stay here and coordinate our defenses. I'm leading a team to the surface. Maya gripped his arm, her eyes searching his face. Be careful, Roy. We need you. With a nod, Roy donned the protective suit he'd worn earlier, now modified with additional armor plating. He led a group of Deltan warriors, each equipped with newly fabricated energy weapons, to the surface access tunnels. The harsh light of Zeta-9's sun assaulted them as they emerged onto the planet's surface. In the distance, Roy could see the sleek, metallic forms of Galactic Council combat mechs advancing across the dunes. Spread out, Roy commanded. Use the terrain to your advantage. Wait for my signal to engage. The Deltans moved with a grace that belied their lack of combat experience, taking up positions behind rock formations and within the shadows of towering crystalline structures. As the Council forces drew nearer, Roy studied their formation. He noticed a pattern in their movements, a weakness in their flank. With a series of hand signals, he directed his Deltan warriors to focus their fire on that vulnerable point. Now, Roy shouted, and a barrage of energy blasts erupted from the Deltan positions. The Council forces were caught off guard by the precision and power of the attack. Several mechs fell, their pilots unable to react in time. But the Council troops quickly regrouped, returning fire with devastating force. Roy ducked behind a boulder as energy blasts so scorched the ground around him. He tapped his communicator. Maya, we need air support. Can you get those repurposed mining drones in the air? On it! Maya's voice crackled through the comm. Moments later, a swarm of Deltan drones appeared on the horizon, raining down energy pulses on the Council forces. The battle raged for hours, with both sides taking heavy losses. Roy's tactical acumen proved crucial as he continually outmaneuvered the Council troops, using the Deltans' superior knowledge of the terrain to their advantage. Finally, as Zeta-9's sun began to set, the Council forces retreated. Roy watched them go, his body aching from the intense combat. He knew this was only the beginning. Back in the underground city, Roy was met with cheers from the Deltan population. But he had no time to bask in the victory. He immediately convened with the Deltan leadership to plan their next move. As they discussed strategies, Maya approached Roy, her expression a mix of excitement and apprehension. Roy, our scientists have made a breakthrough, she said. They believe they can combine your DNA with ours to create a new generation of Deltans capable of surviving on the surface. Roy's eyes widened at the implications. That's incredible news. What do they need? Maya hesitated. The process, it's dangerous. They need a large sample of your genetic material. The extraction could be life-threatening. Roy felt the weight of the decision pressing down on him. On one hand, this could be the key to ensuring the Deltans' long-term survival. On the other, if he didn't survive the procedure, who would lead the defense against the next inevitable Council attack? After a moment of intense deliberation, Roy made his choice. I'll do it, he said firmly. This is bigger than just fighting off the Council. This is about the future of your entire species. Maya's eyes glistened with emotion as she led Roy to the medical bay. The procedure was excruciating, unlike anything Roy had ever experienced. He felt as if his very essence was being drawn from his body. Through the haze of pain, he clung to the hope that this sacrifice would secure a future for the Deltans. As Roy lay recovering, alarms blared throughout the underground city. The Council had launched a second, more powerful assault. With Roy incapacitated, Maya took charge of the Deltan forces, implementing the strategies they had developed together. From his medical bed, Roy coordinated with the Deltan scientists, guiding them in activating the ancient technology hidden in the planet's core. As they worked, the sound of battle echoed through the caverns, growing ever closer. Just as the protective dome over the city began to crack under the Council's relentless assault, Roy made a startling discovery. The device wasn't a weapon at all, but a planetary shield generator. With trembling hands, he input the final sequence. A low hum reverberated through the planet, growing in intensity until it seemed to shake the very air. Outside, a shimmering energy field expanded from the ground up, enveloping all of Zeta-9 in its protective embrace. The Galactic Council's weapons fire dissipated harmlessly against the shield. Their ships, unable to penetrate the barrier, began to retreat. As the immediate danger passed, Roy and Maya reunited in the command center. They shared a moment of relief, their hands intertwined, but their respite was short-lived. A Deltan technician approached, his face grave. "The shield," he said, "it's draining the planet's core energy at an alarming rate. At this pace, it will fail within days." Roy and Maya exchanged worried glances. They had won this battle, but the war was just the beginning. As celebrations began around them, they knew their greatest challenge still lay ahead, finding a way to power the shield and secure the Deltans' future before the Galactic Council returned in force. Full force. Roy and Maya exchanged a determined look, knowing their work was a long way to go. "We need to find a way to sustain the shield," Roy said, his voice hoarse from the strain of recent events. "Any ideas?" Maya's eyes lit up with sudden inspiration. "The ancient Deltan archives. There might be something there about harnessing energy from our three suns." Without wasting a moment, they dove into the vast database of Deltan knowledge. Hours passed as they sifted through countless files and diagrams. Finally, Maya let out a triumphant cry. "Here," she exclaimed, pulling up a holographic schematic. "Our ancestors developed technology to collect and store solar energy on a massive scale. If we can adapt this, we might be able to power the shield indefinitely." Roy studied the plans, his mind racing. "It's our best shot, but we'll need to construct these collectors on the surface." Gathering a team of Deltan engineers and scientists, Roy led an expedition to the planet's scorching surface. The heat was oppressive, even through their protective suits. They worked tirelessly, assembling enormous arrays of crystalline panels designed to capture and amplify the energy of Zeta-9's triple suns. As Roy oversaw the construction, a distant rumble caught his attention. He raised his binoculars, heart sinking at the sight of Galactic Council ships entering the atmosphere. "They're back," he radioed to Maya, "and they've brought reinforcements." Maya's voice crackled through the comm. "The shield is holding, but they're trying something new. Our sensors are picking up small objects penetrating the planet's crust." Roy cursed under his breath. "Infiltration pods. They're going to try to bypass the shield entirely. We need to split our forces." He quickly divided the Deltan warriors, leaving some to guard the solar collector construction, while he led a team back into the underground city. They raced through winding tunnels, guided by Maya's updates on the pod's locations. The first battle erupted in a cavernous chamber. Council troops, clad in sleek battle armor, poured out of a smoldering hole in the rock face. Roy and his Deltan allies engaged them in close-quarters combat, energy weapons flashing in the dim light. As Roy ducked behind a crystal formation, narrowly avoiding a barrage of enemy fire, a familiar voice caught his attention. "Stand down, Lieutenant Thompson." Roy froze, recognizing the authoritative tone. He peered around his cover to see Admiral Vance, his former superior in the Human Diplomatic Corps, standing among the Council forces. "Admiral," Roy called out, confusion and anger warring in his voice. "What are you doing here?" Vance's face was a mask of cold perseverance. "I'm here to put an end to this foolish rebellion. The Council's work is too important to be derailed by a handful of misfits. The revelation hit Roy like a physical blow. The betrayal ran deeper than he could have imagined. As Vance monologued about Earth's role as an unwitting pawn in the Council's genetic experiments, Roy's mind raced, piecing together the implications. A sudden explosion rocked the cavern, cutting off Vance's speech. Roy seized the opportunity, rallying his Deltan allies to push back against the Council forces. The battle raged on, spreading through the underground city as more infiltration pods breached the crust. In the midst of the chaos, Maya's excited voice came through Roy's comm. "Roy, I've done it. I've adapted our neural interface technology to work with your physiology. It could allow you to control the planetary shield directly, making it far more efficient." Roy ducked into a side tunnel, catching his breath. "That's great news, Maya. But what's the catch?" Her hesitation was palpable. "It's not without risk. The strain on your mind and body could be severe." Roy didn't hesitate. "Do it. We're out of options." He made his way to the control center, where Maya waited with a sleek headset. As she fitted it onto him, explaining the procedure, alarms blared throughout the city. "The first enhanced Deltan infants," a scientist reported, rushing into the room. "They're developing at an incredible rate." Roy locked eyes with Maya, seeing his own mix of hope and apprehension reflected there. These children, born of human and Deltan DNA, could be the key to their survival, or the catalyst for even greater conflict. As Roy activated the neural interface, feeling the immense power of the planetary shield flow through him, he knew their fight was nowhere near the end. The Galactic Council would stop at nothing to control this new species. And somewhere out there, Earth remained oblivious to the true nature of galactic politics. "Maya," Roy said, gritting his teeth against the strain of maintaining the shield, "we need to get word to Earth. They need to know the truth." Maya nodded, her mind already formulating a plan. The Council's communication relay in orbit. If we can access it... Roy finished her thought. "We can broadcast the truth to Earth and expose the Council's lies." As they began to strategize this daring space mission, Roy felt the weight of two civilizations on his shoulders. The battles on Zeta 9 were just the beginning. The real war for the future of both Deltans and humans was about to begin. The stakes had never been higher, and time was running out. Roy turned to Maya, his eyes blazing with drive. "We need to get to that communication relay. It's our only chance to expose the truth and save both our peoples." Maya nodded, her face set with persistence. "I'll gather our best pilots and engineers. We'll need to retrofit one of our ships for space combat." As Maya coordinated the preparation efforts, Roy briefed the Deltan leadership on their plan. The next few hours were a whirlwind of activity as they readied for the daring mission. Finally, Roy stood before the sleek, modified Deltan craft. Its crystalline hull gleamed under the cavern lights, newly fitted weapon systems humming with energy. He took a deep breath, knowing the fate of two worlds rested on his shoulders. "Be careful up there," Maya said, her hand resting on his arm. "We'll hold the fort down here." Roy nodded, climbing into the cockpit. As the ship rose through a hidden launch tunnel, he felt the familiar surge of adrenaline that preceded combat. The moment Roy broke through Zeta 9's atmosphere, alarms blared. Council patrol ships converged on his position, their weapons charging. Roy's hands flew over the controls, pushing the Deltan craft to its limits. Energy blasts screamed past as Roy barrel rolled, returning fire with the ship's newly installed pulse cannons. A Council ship exploded in a brilliant flash, but two more took its place. Roy gritted his teeth, pushing the engines beyond their safe limits. The ship shuddered as he wove through the barrage of enemy fire. A glancing hit sent him spinning, alarms shrieking in the cockpit. With a Herculean effort, Roy stabilized the craft, spotting the looming shape of the communication relay ahead. Council ships formed a protective screen around it, their weapons trained on his approach. Roy's mind raced, calculating trajectories and angles. In a split-second decision, he cut power to the engines and weapons, letting momentum carry him forward. The Council ships, momentarily confused by his apparent surrender, hesitated. It was all the opening Roy needed. He surged forward, full power restored, threading the needle between two patrol ships. Before they could react, he was past their defensive line on a collision course with the relay station. At the last possible moment, Roy fired the ship's emergency grapples. The crystalline hull screeched against the relay's metal surface as he brought the craft to a brutally abrupt halt. Wasting no time, Roy donned his exosuit and burst from the airlock. The relay's outer hull loomed before him, Council security forces already converging on his position. Roy activated his suit's magnetic boots, sprinting across the station's surface. Energy bolts sizzled past him as he reached an airlock, overriding the security with Delton Tech. Inside, Roy found himself in a narrow corridor. The station's artificial gravity kicked in, and he immediately had to dodge a hail of fire from Council guards. He rolled behind a bulkhead, returning fire with his Delton energy pistol. The close quarters worked to Roy's advantage. His human combat training, honed through years of service, gave him an edge over the Council's standardized tactics. He moved like a whirlwind, disarming one guard with a swift kick before using him as a human shield against his comrades. Roy fought his way through the station, leaving a trail of unconscious guards in his wake. He reached the main control room, sealing the doors behind him. As Roy worked to override the relay systems, his comms crackled to life. Maya's voice came through, tense and filled with static. "Roy, we're under heavy assault down here. The Council's launched a full-scale attack on the surface. We're holding them off for now, but..." Her voice cut out in a burst of interference. Roy's fingers flew over the controls, anxiety gnawing at him. He had to complete the transmission quickly and get back to help Maya and the Deltons. As the override neared completion, Roy stumbled upon a hidden data cache. His eyes widened as he skimmed its contents. Detailed records of other alien species the Council had experimented on or destroyed in their quest for control. The magnitude of the Council's crimes fueled Roy's dedication. He began the data transfer, preparing to broadcast not just the truth about the Deltons and humans, but the full extent of the Council's galactic manipulation. Suddenly, a cold mechanical voice filled the room. "Warning, unauthorized access detected. Initiating station self-destruct sequence. Time to detonation. 5 minutes." Roy cursed, redoubling his efforts. The data transfer crawled along as the station's AI fought against him. Sweat beaded on his forehead as he raced against time, the countdown to destruction ticking away in the background. With seconds to spare, Roy completed the transmission. He allowed himself a moment of grim satisfaction before sprinting back towards his ship. The station groaned around him, systems failing as the self-destruct sequence entered its final stages. Roy reached his craft just as the first explosions rocked the relay. He detached from the dying station, engines screaming as he pushed them to their absolute limit. The shockwave from the relay's destruction caught Roy's ship, sending it tumbling through space. Fighting for control, Roy aimed the battered craft towards Zeta 9, praying he'd make it in time to help turn the tide of battle. As he entered the planet's atmosphere, Roy saw the chaos unfolding below. The weakened sections of the planetary shield flickered and failed, allowing Council ships to pour through. Battles raged across the surface, the sky filled with energy blasts and explosions. Roy's damaged ship plummeted toward the ground, systems failing one by one. He glimpsed the main Delton city below, surrounded by Council forces. At its center, a brilliant light pulsed, Maya and the hybrid children making their last stand. With the last of his ship's power, Roy aimed for the heart of the battle. The ground rushed up to meet him as he prepared for impact, knowing the real fight was only just beginning. As Roy's ship plummeted towards the heart of the battle, he saw the brilliant light pulsing from the main Delton city, Maya and the hybrid children making their last stand. The impact sent shock waves through the ground, but Roy barely felt it as he burst from the wreckage, his mind focused solely on reaching Maya. He sprinted through the chaos, dodging energy blasts and leaping over debris. As he approached the city center, Roy saw Maya coordinating the defense, her face etched with dedication. The hybrid children stood in a circle around her, their eyes glowing with an otherworldly light. "Maya," Roy called out, relief flooding through him as she turned to meet his gaze. "Roy, you made it." She embraced him quickly before returning to the battle at hand. "The Council's bringing in something big. We're running out of options." As if on cue, the sky darkened. A massive ship, easily dwarfing anything Roy had ever seen, appeared above the planet. Its hull bristled with weaponry, and at its center, a pulsing orb of energy grew brighter with each passing second. "It's their doomsday weapon," Maya said, her voice tight with fear. "If it fires, Zeta-9 will be obliterated." Roy's mind raced. "The planetary shield, can we use it offensively?" Maya's eyes widened. "It's never been done before, but theoretically, yes. We'd need to channel an enormous amount of power." Roy nodded towards the hybrid children. "What about them? Can they amplify the shield's power?" "It's possible," Maya said, hope creeping into her voice. "But someone would need to interface directly with the shield's control system. The strain could be fatal." Without hesitation, Roy stepped forward. "I'll do it. Get me to the control room." As they raced through the underground tunnels, the ground shook violently. The doomsday weapon was powering up, its energy signature growing exponentially. They burst into the shield control room, a cavernous space filled with pulsing crystals and humming machinery. Maya quickly attached the neural interface to Roy's temples, her fingers trembling slightly. "Remember," she said, her eyes locked on his, "you're channeling the power of an entire planet. Don't let it overwhelm you." Roy nodded, steeling himself for what was to come. As Maya activated the interface, he felt a surge of energy course through his body. It was like nothing he had ever experienced, raw, primal power flooding every cell. Outside, the hybrid children formed a circle, their combined psychic abilities creating a shimmering field of energy. Maya stood at the center, acting as a conduit between them and Roy. Roy could feel the doomsday weapon charging, its malevolent energy pressing against the weakening planetary shield. With a silent prayer, he pushed his consciousness into the shield systems. The world around Roy vanished, replaced by a sea of swirling energy. He could feel the shield's power, vast and ancient, waiting to be unleashed. With a thought, he began to expand it. The shield pulsed, growing brighter and stronger. It pushed outward, enveloping not just Zeta-9 but the surrounding space. Roy felt a moment of resistance as it encountered the Council's fleet, then a rush of satisfaction as their ship's systems began to fail. The doomsday weapon fired, its beam of destructive energy lashing out, only to be caught and reflected by the supercharged shield. Roy watched in awe as the weapon's power turned back on itself, creating a chain reaction that tore through the Council's command ship. As the massive vessel exploded, Roy felt a surge of triumph, but it was short-lived. The strain of maintaining the shield at such power was taking its toll. He could feel Zeta-9's core destabilizing, the planet groaning under the immense energy flowing through it. "Roy," Maya's voice cut through his consciousness, "we need to evacuate. The planet's breaking apart." With supreme effort, Roy pulled back from the shield interface. The room around him came into focus, shaking violently as earthquakes rocked the planet. Maya was coordinating the evacuation, her voice steady despite the chaos. "We're loading everyone onto the ships," she reported, "but we're running out of time." Roy looked at the shield controls, an idea forming. "I can use the shield to buy us more time. Get everyone to the ships. I'll hold it as long as I can." Maya's eyes widened in understanding and fear. "Roy, no, you can't." "We don't have a choice," Roy said, his voice firm. "Go. Save our people." For a moment it seemed Maya would argue. Then she nodded, tears in her eyes. She pulled Roy into a fierce embrace before turning to leave. As the last of the Deltans and hybrids boarded the evacuation ships, Roy poured every ounce of his strength into maintaining the shield. He could feel the planet crumbling beneath him, but he held on, determined to give the others every possible second. Through the neural interface, Roy sensed the ships lifting off. With his last reserves of energy, he shaped the shield into a massive pulse. The energy burst propelled the Deltan ships to safety while obliterating the remaining Council forces. As Zeta-9 began to implode around him, Roy felt a strange sense of peace. He had done his part. The others were safe. As darkness closed in, his last thought was of Maya and the future they had fought so hard to secure. But fate, it seemed, had other plans for Roy Thompson.
You have reached the end of the story. If you enjoyed this story and want to support us, please leave a like and subscribe to our channel, And for every comment that says 88, I will heart every single one of them. Thank you for your time.